Good afternoon. I'm Marilee Rosine Beasley, and I'm here in Jersey Village, Texas, where I've lived for 40 years. I want to inform you about some things, and I'm going to call today's YouTube video, We the People. I think that some of our elected officials have forgotten that we, the people, are supposed to be in charge of this country. Apparently, lately, I've noticed that there are some people that think they're more special than others. There are many in leadership at all levels, city councils, HOAs, MUD districts, the state level, the federal government, who think they're special. And we all are we just put our pants on one leg at a time. Now, I have been following very closely many things for the last 2 years in Jersey Village, Texas, where I live. So I want to tell you just a little bit about how I got started. About 2 years ago, in fact, 2.5 years ago, a young man who I did not think had the qualifications of his opponent, who was an attorney and had business experience, won an election by 3 votes. And I became suspicious about that. I found out that we use an old-fashioned mail-in ballot box that you could put your hand in. And I found out that there were a lot of mail-in ballots. So I decided to take my own money. I decided to create a survey, and I sent that survey out to almost every mail-in ballot recipient. I had quite a response from that because I included an envelope with my address and a stamp on it. I had 3 voters who indicated they'd never applied for a mail-in ballot, and James Singleton won by 3 votes, which I think is very strange. I reported all of that to the State of Texas Election Division. I had a friend who was in the count room the day of the election, and she noticed some things that didn't seem quite right. So she sent all of that information in to the State of Texas Election Division. Well, these things were only misdemeanors. And so James Singleton even came into the election poll that day, which is a Class C misdemeanor. Well, it appears that, I guess we're so small, that the State of Texas Election Division just doesn't have the manpower to investigate a little group like us. All right, well, as I continue for the next 2.5 years, I discovered there were a lot of issues. It turns out that when we have a vacancy on council, the Jersey Village City Council members appoint one of their friends to be on council. We don't elect. All right, so then I noticed some other problems. And I happen to be a certified school teacher, reading specialist, a registered nurse, and I have an MBA. The reason I'm telling you this is because I was a nursing instructor for several years at Harris Health. And I was taught process improvement, and I know a lot about statistics. I also was researching many things, and what seemed to me is that no matter what I advised the city council about problems and often solutions, they really didn't care. They didn't care that the dog park that was on our wish list for the city could make dogs sick. They didn't care that dogs can get hurt at dog parks. They just didn't seem to care. So we got a dog park whether we needed one or not. Now, I also during this time discovered some other things. It turns out that we had special meetings. One of them was at 5:30, one was at 6. And the information about these special meetings were posted on Friday afternoon. Now, how did anybody even know to look that we were going to have a special meeting on Monday at 5:30 or at 6 p.m.? And it didn't matter anyway because most of the residents aren't home from work. They don't have time to feed their children and go to the special meeting that we didn't even know about. Now, I did bring this problem up, and I was told, well, they fulfilled the legal obligation. Well, in my opinion, it's not about fulfilling a legal obligation. It's about making sure that the residents are aware that there is a meeting. Well, to continue on, I discovered in the special meetings that the citizens who pay for all these special projects that we don't even know about Well, we didn't even get to comment for 5 minutes. There was no comment section until Bill Beasley protested one night and the city attorney agreed with him. So all I can ask of our Jersey Village City Council is this the way you run a local government? After all, they work for us. And I believe that we need to have better term limits, whether it's Austin, Jersey Village City Council, whether it's at the federal level, we need term limits. Okay, so to continue on with this saga for 2 years, 2.5 years, it just appeared to me that no matter what I and others said to the Jersey Village City Council about problems, they just didn't care because they had the keys to the treasury. I also found out during that time period that a former mayor, Russell Hamley, had written a letter to the residents in about August 2008 that they were going to be able to, I guess, save up the extra money instead of giving a better refund to the residents. They would save the money up. And that went on for about 12 years. And that meant there was almost $18 million for the city council to spend on our behalf without our knowledge and without our permission. I think what they did is they took the money and they put it in different bank accounts so nobody would really know about it, because there are guidelines about how much money a city's allowed to have in reserve. And I do remember a former city council member, Curtis Haverty, one evening mentioned, oh, they just, they were forward thinking. Well, I don't see it that way. Now, last October, the Jersey Village Police Chief got fired. And I did a PIR, public information request, for his termination letter. I was quite upset when I read it. Eric Forrester appeared to me to be quite a tyrant. He was here for 9 years. I and others paid his salary. And I don't like for somebody to be disrespectful to their staff. I don't like him to be disrespectful to other members of the Jersey Village leadership team. So anyway, I was pretty upset about that. I put his termination letter on my website, the maryleebeasley.org website, and I did make sure that a lot of people were aware of it, and over 4,200 people visited and saw the termination letter. Now, we got a new police chief, Chief Riggs. Chief Riggs fired Detective Ron Dooley. Now, I really liked Ron Dooley, even though I found out later that Ron Dooley was in a hot tub with 2 women. One of them became hysterical. He handcuffed her, and it went to a grand jury in San Angelo, Texas. So apparently, Ron Dooley and Eric Forrester knew each other from San Angelo. All right, now, it happens that Ron Dooley is on the Brady list. That means he can't testify in Harris County courts. So anyway, that's a serious problem when you're a detective for a place like Jersey Village Police Department. Okay, now to continue on with the saga, I did get James Singleton's personnel file. James used to work for the Jersey Village Police Department. So I found out that James Singleton was in a very serious accident in a Jersey Village Police Department vehicle. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and he ran into a stationary object. It was a utility pole. And my understanding is that in the military, he'd be facing a court-martial. Well, anyway, so that was back in, I think, June of 2008, I believe. So he also was transported to the nearby ER to have his arm, his hand, and his eye evaluated. Now that meant, as I believe, that he tied up 2 police officers with his very serious vehicle accident, and he tied himself up because he was injured. And so now, who is taking care of the city? Because now we got 3 police officers who are pulled away because James Singleton wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and I want to know why. Anyway, so to continue on with the saga, I asked for the Internal Affairs Investigation Report that was in James Singleton's file. I was told, I did that with a public information request. I was told there was nothing responsive to that request. Now I want to know where that report went. Detective Sean Horton wrote the report, and it was about a situation in Officer Cray's with his vehicle. So I want to know who stole that out. Did they steal it? Where is that report? Okay, so I want to know why the Jersey Village City Council all endorsed James Singleton to run for city council. I don't think that's proper. I think it's unethical that the entire Jersey Village City Council endorsed James Singleton. Everybody I knew was voting for his opponent, Simon Hughes. Simon Hughes is an attorney with business experience. And Curtis Haverty sent an email to a lot of people complaining that Simon Hughes, when he was a lot younger, had a little incident with some alcohol. And as many young men do, or young people do. I didn't appreciate it at all. I thought it was mean and underhanded and whatever. So I wrote to all the Jersey Village City Council, the mayor, and to Curtis Haverty about my displeasure about this. Well, anyway, to continue on with the saga. So I decided to run for Jersey Village City Council because I had made myself the watchdog. Well, while I was running, a very weird letter came out. Some people called it the disturbing letter. Now, my hunch is that James Singleton, Bobby Warren, and Andrew Mitchum wrote that letter to make me look bad. Now, that's just a hunch. I don't know. Will I ever be able to prove it? Who knows? Okay, so to continue on with this problem, of course I didn't win. Is it possible that the Jersey Village City Council members did not want me asking a lot of questions, so they made sure I would not win? Probably. That's my best guess. Well, that's okay. I did my best. Then I decided to run for state representative against the former mayor, Justin Ray. Well, it just so happens I have 4 college degrees in 3 different fields that I got in my spare time. I've been a Republican for 53 years. All right? And I don't like corruption. I don't like all these little games that people play. Now, I happen to be a nurse, school teacher. I'm interested in education reform, prison reform, immigration reform. I'm interested in mental health reform. I also was raised by parents who were chemists, but their parents were farmers, so my mother taught me to be conscious of the environment. My parents always had a big backyard garden. By the time I was 18, I had traveled to 48 states. I'd lived in Indonesia when I was a child. I had actually traveled to Rome as a child, as a baby, 15 months old. Obviously, I don't remember stopping in Rome. My sister was born in Indonesia, and then my dad took a job in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He became the director of a research lab related to, they did things like drilling muds, and it was a division of Dow Chemical, and that's where I grew up. So I'm the oldest of 6 children, and my mother did not allow us to fib. But apparently, if you're a politician, you can just say whatever you want. And I don't think that's okay. Now, when I do my research and look at candidates, I'm looking for the most qualified candidate. And I'll tell you, it's very hard to figure out who that is. I have found out that Joe Dana, who was running for Harris County Sheriff, was fired for lying when he was a constable. And apparently, he hired a company to remove everything about him on the internet. So how can you do your research? Now, I did tell people to Google Joe Dana and Fox News. Then I did a public information request and got Joe Dana's personnel file. So the section about his being fired for lying and the fact that apparently he claimed that he had served a document to a woman and she was in jail. And he claimed he served her at an apartment where she had not lived for several months. And my understanding is that I think it was her attorney that brought that to the attention. And I don't understand why it wasn't prosecuted. I guess if you just, you got friends everywhere. I don't know. Well, anyway, there are people that are not happy that I'm exposing Joe Dana. To me, it's very important that we have the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth. Oh, well, I guess if you're a politician, it doesn't matter anymore. Now, I also discovered that apparently, I think Justin Ray did the same thing. There was an article that was written by David Yates. It was the Southeast Texas Record. it seems to have been purged off the internet. And I believe the title, as I recall, was something like Lawsuit, Bankruptcy, and Back Taxes. And I think it's gone from the internet. Now, I happen to have posted that article on my website several months ago. So I guess somebody could still find it. I don't know. I would imagine that David Yates and Southeast Texas Record are not even aware that it seems to be gone. So how can people like me, how can the voters do all of their own research if the candidates come in and remove this information? It's pretty darn hard. So anyway, I just want to mention that I told people to Google Joe Dana and Fox News. Google Joe Dana, Fox News over and over. Well, there were many in the Republican Party that were not very happy that I said that. It's just facts. Don't we want the facts? Now, also, I want to mention something else. It has come to my attention that Andrew Mitchum, the current mayor, has apparently gone around proper channels so that he could have a Senate Avenue Brewery Pub. I was sent an anonymous email about that. Now, is that okay? It seems a little unethical to me. My understanding is that he had the Jersey Village Zoning Commission change laws just for him, and then he had the Jersey Village City Council go ahead and vote on it while he sat on the front row. Now, I did stand up that night in City Council before all of this happened, and I pointed out that this is unethical, although I don't think anybody really cared what I had to say, of course, because they are used to doing whatever they want to do. And I am concerned that there's this new collaborative deal thing that I just have a hunch that somebody owns land that's next to that. So it just seems like people can do whatever they want to do because it's all about what? Power and money. So I'm concerned about candidates who do things like that. Now, I know that Dan Crenshaw, the person who has the patch, wrote, there was a postcard that came out that said Justin Ray was the youngest mayor. Well, guess what? This is what happened, from what I understand. Rod Erskine, the previous mayor, decided to drop out at the last minute, and so Justin Ray was the only one that knew that was going to be available to run. Now, I voted for Justin, not because he was the youngest mayor. I voted for him because at that time I thought he made sense, and I put a sign in my yard. Well, now I am wondering about the moral compass that Justin Ray, Joe Dana, all the politicians that want to play games, I'm wondering, do they have a moral compass? I don't understand why somebody like Justin Ray, whose brother, Jeremy, was killed in Afghanistan, would do these kinds of things in order to be a candidate. I don't think it makes sense. And apparently Justin Ray is backed by a lot of rich developers. And so and the things that really floored me is Justin Ray came out and acted on one of the postcards like John Rosenthal doesn't care about education. I find that very hard to believe. John Rosenthal is a mechanical engineer and went to UT Austin. His father, I believe, is a professor at UT Austin. So I find it hard to believe that John Rosenthal is not interested in education. So the problem is that I guess the voters just see a postcard, don't check anything out, don't look anything up, they just assume. Now, I was very surprised, of course I got beat when I ran against Justin Ray. I was very surprised that Justin Ray won by 317 votes. I had expected there to be a wider margin because to me, between John and Justin Ray and the things I know about what's been going on in Jersey Village, I really saw John Rosenthal as the more qualified candidate. I actually remember there used to be a time when you didn't vote for the party, you voted for the person. You looked for the most qualified candidate. Well, it just so happens I didn't vote for Joe Dana. I don't care if he's pretending to be a Republican, or maybe he is. I voted for Ed Gonzalez. Because of the two, he seemed to be the more qualified candidate, plus I knew that all this other stuff had been going on. Okay, and there was somebody else that I voted for, a Democrat. And I'm telling you, I don't know why the Republican Party leaders act like we should not vote for anybody but a Republican. I am sorry, but I'm not voting for a Republican that I think is up to no good. So anyway, those are things to think about. Now, I want to talk just briefly about the coronavirus. I have been a public health nurse for almost 2 decades. Now, did anybody 2 years ago, when during the annual flu season, did they make everybody wear those masks? I think the annual flu is a bigger threat. Children aren't usually impacted by the coronavirus. They do get the annual flu, and I know this because I was also a school nurse, and we reported the children that came back to us that had confirmed flu cases. Now, they don't do that for adults, I don't think. I think they just use computer modeling and they estimate how many people had the flu that season. And also understand that they reformulate the vaccine every year. Now, there's several effective medications to treat the coronavirus, and one of them is very inexpensive. So I do want to caution everybody. I don't have any plans to take a vaccine that seemed rushed to market, and I'm wondering who is benefiting from the vaccine. The companies, could Bill Gates be a partial owner? I'm sorry, but I don't trust Dr. Fauci anymore. I haven't for a while. Dr. Fauci became very famous because of the AIDS virus. He's a virologist. I don't think Dr. Fauci has probably treated many patients in the last 10, 15 years. I doubt it. So these are some things to think about. Now, if you are interested, I have a lot of YouTube videos about the coronavirus on my website, the MarileeBeasley.org website. Now, I want you to realize that I haven't reviewed every single fact. They look pretty much like they're facts. So you will have to go ahead and decide for yourself if the information makes sense. Now, I do not understand why the governors lock down their states, why governors shut down the great outdoors. The coronavirus dies in the sunlight and will drift away on air currents. So it seems to me that the best place to be is outdoors. All right, so these are some things for you to think about. I don't understand. I think this is ridiculous that you are forced in Harris County to wear a mask into a restaurant and then you can take it right off because how can you eat through your mask? Now, when I'm forced to wear a mask, I like to wear the one with the plastic face shield like you see in surgery. I do have an N95 mask because, remember, I've been a public health nurse for almost 2 decades. I used to work for the Harris County Health Department. So these are things that I'm aware of. I used to actually review and analyze active TB cases. That's why I know these things. TB is mostly respiratory, so is the coronavirus, the annual flu. All right, so please, please use your practical common sense to look at this information. Now, I want to mention something, a couple of things. I don't know what's happened in this country about liberty. What happened to our liberty? If you're sick, don't go to school and work if you're sick. If you have an immune system that's been compromised, please stay away from crowds like your doctor told you to. Why should the rest of us have to wear masks just in case? Please don't do what your doctor recommended. It's practical common sense. But apparently common sense isn't common anymore. So as an educator, I'm doing my best to educate the public. I've written to the president 13 times. I've taken that email. I've sent it to Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor, Lena Hidalgo, Jack Cagle, Paul Bettman. I don't know. I've sent it to many Houston Chronicle reporters trying to educate them. I just don't get it. I sent it email to Senator Cruz, Senator Corner, and I get that. Thank you very much for writing email. I don't get it. I don't understand why we're wearing and when I see a leader wear a flimsy blue mask, I know they didn't do their own research. All right, so some other things I want to mention is, just as I said before, we should always vote for the most qualified candidate. And we need to make sure that we're vigilant, we're watching these candidates because they forget they work for us. Now, something that I'm very interested in, I made some mugs, had some mugs made. Facts are pesky things. I have a t-shirt. Facts are pesky things. So some of the things that I think would be helpful is to keep in mind is term limits. We need better term limits, whether it's at the federal level, state level. city council level, we've got to get more serious about term limits. This is why we're in a pickle. Now, I don't know how people feel about Trump. Yes, we all know he's a bully from New York. We get it. The thing is, he's working hard for us. Now, I don't understand about Joe Biden. He appears to have dementia. He appears to have had wandering hands. I don't understand about Hunter Biden and his laptop that apparently the FBI had for well over a year, and apparently he was cooking up deals with other foreign governments. I don't get any of this. I don't understand why this might be okay. I don't understand about Kamala Harris, let's see. Her mother was from India, under the jurisdiction of India. Her father was under the jurisdiction of Jamaica, and apparently their family owned a lot of slaves back in Jamaica. And so she's, I guess, half from India. Now, I don't think she's a legitimate candidate. She was born in California, but her parents were under the jurisdiction of foreign countries. So just because somebody says we have anchor baby status, I don't think it makes it true. So her parents were under the jurisdiction of other countries. They were foreign countries. So I know about this because my parents, we lived in Indonesia. My sister was born there, and they're from the United States. So, maybe you can, if you want, you can become a citizen of Indonesia. That is not what my sister chose to do, of course. And so all of this nonsense about, Kamala Harris that. I also don't understand. She was 29 years old, and she was the mistress of Willie Brown, who was the mayor of San Francisco. He was 60, and I don't think that's a very good role model for the young women of the United States of America. Anyway, these are just some things for you to keep thinking about. So please remember this. Our military goes off to fight on our behalf so we can have freedom of speech, so we can have the right to bear arms. And what would the founding fathers think about all of this nonsense? I don't think they'd be very happy. They were willing to die for their beliefs. And frankly, I think we got a lot of people that have forgotten they work for us, they've lost their moral compass, and what I'm doing is I'm praying every day throughout the day, God save America, because there's a bunch of people that I consider dum-dums and nitwits that want to run the country, and they don't care about you and me. So please spread the word, and I want to leave this with you. One more thing to think about. We the people. Evil prevails when good men and women do nothing. And please do more than just vote. Please research these candidates. And I want to tell you about some fraud that's voter fraud in Harris County. I am convinced that Sheila Jackson Lee does not win her elections without doing mail-in ballot fraud. I am convinced that the Harris County judges did not lose and the other candidates did not lose. I have recommended that they protest their elections and then they do a public information request for mail-in ballots in Sheila Jackson Lee's district first. Get a Google Dropbox, get it going, get some volunteers to start analyzing. And the first week of early voting in Harris County, my understanding is there was no chain of custody, that people were going around picking up these ballots that they thought they had safely dropped off to election sites, and people were picking them up. They weren't in sealed boxes. There was no chain of custody. So now what? And voter fraud is on steroids in the United States of America. And if anybody is involved with that, shame on you. And it's postal workers that are dumping ballots. That is not okay. Shame on you. Why would you want to have a country run this way? This is awful. And if you don't like Trump, just hold your nose and vote for him. And now that supposedly the election is over, except now there's all these ballots that are showing up at the last minute, please write letters to your congressmen, write letters to your senators, write letters and tell the leadership that you've had enough. This is not the way to run city governments, state governments, federal governments. This belongs to us, we the people, and we pay for this. It's our hard-earned tax dollars, and they do not know how to be frugal. Stand up, America. Write letters. Stand up. Have your voices heard. And I understand that in Austin, Texas tomorrow at noon, there will be a rally of people that are fed up with all this voter fraud. God bless America. Please shine your light on us still. Thank you. Have a blessed day.